Hey tubers, it's Tony, and today I'm going to show you how to replace the alternator on your 2010 Chevy Impala. This is the V6 motor. The reason why I'm going to replace the alternator today is because it was tested and it no longer charges the battery. One of the first things you want to do before working on anything electrical in your vehicle is you want to always disconnect the negative side or black cable from your battery. This keeps you from potentially shorting out other fuses and or doing harmful damage to your car's computer. Once you've disconnected the negative side battery terminal, you can go to the engine compartment where the alternator is located next to the firewall. You're going to notice this coolant reservoir here. It sort of sits on its own holder. You can just pick it up and move it to the side. The next thing you'll need to do is remove the drive belt. FYI guys, if you're unfamiliar with how to remove a belt or how to reinstall a drive belt on a vehicle, you may want to snap a photograph of how the belt is routed around the pulleys before you take it apart so that you will know how to put it back together. Oftentimes folks will get confused when putting a belt back on. They'll have an extra amount of belt in their hand with no place to put it. It just simply means that you missed the routing of a pulley somewhere, and that's why you have that extra belt. Snap a photograph and it will save you lots of time, guys. So to remove the belt, this vehicle has a belt tensioner, and it is right here. I know you really can't see that. On that belt tensioner, guys, it has a groove that's built on it that's designed to receive the head of your 3/8 ratchet. So you just go down there and mount it inside that groove that's built on the belt tensioner, and then you crank your ratchet towards the front of the vehicle. This will relieve the stress on the belt, and then you can slide the belt off. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up and show you how I do it. Okay guys, see how I have the ratchet sitting in the belt tensioner's groove? Then I take a big socket and a long driver and I place it over the arm of the ratchet, and then what you can do is you can crank the ratchet towards the front of the vehicle and watch the belt get loose. See? Belt is now loose. You can slide the belt off of the pulleys. So I don't have three hands, guys, so I'm going to put the camera down so that I can remove the drive belt. Okay guys, now that you've removed the drive belt, you don't have to take it off of the pulleys. You can just let it sit there, slide it off of this pulley here, and just drop the belt and let it sit there. Okay guys, the next thing you'll need to do is break this 14 millimeter, I believe it's 14 millimeter. Oops, I'm sorry. You'll need to break this 15 millimeter alternator retainer bolt, and then right around here, guys, just right about here, you just have to feel for it. There is another 15 millimeter retainer bolt that you'll need to break loose. This one is in a tight spot, so just take your time. Once you take those two bolts loose and remove them, the alternator should fall out of its housing. You want to slightly pull the alternator this way, and then you can begin to disconnect the battery's electrical connector and the battery lead. This is the battery lead, and I'll get to the alternator's electrical connector once I remove these two bolts, so I'll be back. Okay guys, I wanted to show you how I set this up. There's my ratchet, my 15 millimeter bolt. You just have to kind of like feel down there with your hand until you actually get the socket over the bolt, and then you want to crank it towards the driver's side of the vehicle to loosen it. Remember guys, lefty loosey, righty tighty. And then again, once you remove that bolt and that 15 millimeter bolt, then we'll get to the alternator's electrical connector. So I hope you can see that. I'll be back. FYI guys, the bolt against the firewall is an extremely long bolt, so you won't be able to get it out. Just unscrew it until it's really loose, and then you want to come back and remove that 15mm bolt, and you should be able to pull the alternator out and then remove that bolt once the alternator is free. So just wanted you to know that. Okay guys, I now have this bolt out. It too is an extremely long bolt. I'm going to set that to the side and be careful not to drop it. And then you can begin the process of trying to pull out the alternator. So let me figure that part out first, and then I'll get right back to you. Okay guys, there's something else that's holding this alternator in. So I'm going to come back here and break the battery lead bolt. It is a 12mm bolt. And then I'm going to disconnect the electrical connector. I believe I'm missing a bolt, so I'll be back. Okay guys, I'm back. I wanted to show you something. There are actually 3 bolts. Back there, there's a clip for this line right here. It's secured onto the 14mm or the 15mm bolt that you need to break back here. This goes on first to hold it down, and then you have to remove that clip off of the threads, and then there's a 14mm bolt back there. Let's see, might get a good picture. Then there's a 14mm bolt back there that you'll need to, a 15mm bolt back there that you'll need to break and remove. And then you can work on disconnecting the alternator's electrical connector. So let me go ahead and break that bolt because it's in a tight spot, and I'll be back. Okay guys, FYI again, this bolt back here is extremely tight. So again, remember, don't try and take it all the way out because you won't get it out. It's going to bump up against the firewall. Remove that bolt there. I want you to see that I had to eventually use a wrench to get to that 15mm bolt back there because there isn't enough room for you to get a socket and a ratchet in there and loosen that up. Once you start loosening that bolt, your ratchet and socket, they're going to bump against the firewall, making it almost impossible for you to get them out. So break the bolt as best you can. Then you want to use a wrench, 15mm wrench, to get this bolt on this side of the alternator out. It's a tight spot guys, so just take your time and you'll get it out. Okay guys, I got that 3rd bolt out. Very important, FYI. See this? I'll have to get to it after I remove the alternator. The alternator electrical connector is the push down type tab, guys. You just push this little tab down and pull the alternator electrical connector away from the alternator. So let me do that right quick, and then I'll come back and show you the other thing. Okay guys, I wanted to point something else out to you before I go back down there. Be extremely careful when you break that 3rd bolt over here. Pull the alternator around just enough where you can get to the electrical connector. I believe someone broke this already, but it looks like it has a little thing that the blue thing that you push back, and then you can push this tab down and pull the electrical connector away from the alternator. Be patient guys, this is an extremely tight spot for an alternator and the retaining bolts. So I wanted to show you that 3rd bolt. This is how that 3rd bolt was in there, guys. So that 3rd bolt is in there like that. This little clip, let me push it down in there so the clip can go. When this is all the way in, then this little clip here goes over that bolt. So you'll need to remove that 10mm bolt first, then pull this line up and off of that housing, and then you can go back there with your wrench and remove this 15mm bolt. So that's the 3rd bolt. And again, you won't have a lot of room between the firewall and the bolt for a ratchet and a socket. So just be mindful of that. You'll need to use a 15mm wrench to break this bolt free. Keep in mind, guys, everything that I did today to remove the alternator goes back in the reverse order that I used to remove it. You want to make sure you hold on to all of your bolts, don't drop them. And surprise, in this video, I'm not going to put the alternator back in. I'm going to leave that up to you. It's time that you get your feet wet with your vehicle as it relates to installing your alternator. I showed you how to get it out. You should be able to get it back in the reverse order. So just make sure that in the end you tighten your bolts down. Before you stick your alternator back in, you want to make sure that you tighten up the battery lead, make sure it's tight. You want to put your electrical connector back in. You want to make sure that you tighten up your 3 bolts. Put your belt back on in the reverse order that I used to take it off. You want to reconnect your battery's lead or the black cable to your battery. Then you should be able to start your car and you should be good to go. I have some other things that I need to do back here on this vehicle, guys, so that's why I'm not going to be putting the alternator back in this video. It's really easy, guys. It was a little tough getting it out because it is in a tough spot, but it'll go back in the same way it came out. Just remember to be patient and take your time. I hope the video helps you guys, and remember, there are 3 15mm bolts that you need to remove, and especially that monster there. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys, and take care.